All right, let's jump right in. Today we're doing a full-on coaching session to talk about the one thing that truly separates a junior developer's portfolio from a senior engineer's mindset. And here's a hint. It's not about cramming in more features. It's about one simple thing: survival.
So, I want you to start by asking yourself this one question, and be honest. Because in the real world, there's a massive difference between code that just runs and code that can actually withstand the absolute chaos of a production environment.
And look, here's the hard truth. Most junior portfolios are just a sea of sameness. They're great at showing a feature got built, the happy path, but they don't answer the questions that hiring managers are really asking. Like, what happens when this thing inevitably breaks? And how fast can we possibly fix it?
So, to really stand out, you've got to adopt what we call a production mindset. This is the big leap. It's moving from just thinking about syntax, the code itself, to thinking in systems. It's all about how your code actually behaves out there in a complex, messy, real-world environment. This right here, this is so crucial. It's about what happens after you think the feature is done. Maintainability and testability, they aren't just nice-to-haves. They are the professional follow-through that proves your code can actually be managed by a whole team long after you've moved on.
And then there's this beauty: resilience. Seriously, think of it like your code has its own immune system, a self-healing mechanism. When some other service flickers or the network has a hiccup, does your app just fall over? Or does it have a way to try again, to recover all on its own? That's what senior engineers and SREs get really excited about.
Okay, let's talk observability. When your application fails in production, and trust me, it will fail, your logs are pretty much the only thing you have to piece together what went wrong. Good logging isn't just printing some generic error message. It's about providing the critical data you need for the postmortem, just like a plane's flight recorder.
So, theory is great and all, but let's make this super practical. We're going to take a typical portfolio feature, tear it down, and then rebuild it with that production mindset. Let's see what that looks like. Check this out. On the left, we've got a completely useless error message. An error occurred. Thanks for nothing. But on the right, that's a structured, searchable log. That's not just a message, it's a piece of data. With that trace ID, you can follow every single step that request took through your system. It is quite literally the flight recorder in action.
And here's that self-healing we were talking about. The before call, it fails once and it's game over. The after call, though, it's wrapped in some simple retry logic. It anticipates that things might fail for a second and gives the system a chance to recover automatically. This tiny change is the difference between getting a frantic page at 3 a.m. and a system that just handles it.
And this is exactly why that trace ID is so powerful. In modern systems, a single click from a user can set off this chain reaction across tons of different services. Distributed tracing lets you follow that single request, like a breadcrumb trail, through the entire journey. You can pinpoint exactly where things went wrong or slowed down.
So, we've put in all this work to implement these patterns. Now what? How do we show their value? Well, we do it by connecting them to the things that businesses actually care about: time, money, and of course, reliability.
Just look at this comparison. It's night and day, right? Without observability, you're basically fumbling around in the dark for hours. But with it, you run one simple query for that trace ID, and you've found the problem in minutes. This is a game changer for something we call mean time to recovery, or MTTR. And trust me, that's a metric every single SRE and DevOps manager is obsessed with. And all of this leads us to service level objectives, or SLOs. An SLO is basically a promise you make to your users, a target, like saying we'll have 99.9% uptime. The observability stuff we just talked about, that's not just for fixing bugs. It's the hard data you use to prove you're keeping your promises.
Now, implementing these features is really only half the battle. The other half is knowing how to talk about them. So let's shift gears and focus on how you can explain this value in an interview to make yourself unforgettable.
So take a second, a quick gut check. Think about your own projects. Have you actually implemented things like structured logging or any resilience patterns? If the answer is no, that's okay. You've just found your next area for massive growth.
Okay, now listen to the difference here. The community builder answer, it's fine, it's not wrong, but it's basic. The authority building answer, on the other hand, speaks the language of production. It uses words like traceability, MTTR, and SLOs. That immediately tells the hiring manager you don't just write code, you engineer reliable systems.
And this is so important. When you talk about your project's traceability and operability, you are doing more than just showing off a technical skill. You are directly speaking to the biggest fears of the people who are responsible for keeping the lights on. You're showing them you're part of the solution, not part of the problem.
All right, let's turn all this insight into action right now. Here's your plan to upgrade your portfolio and your interview game starting today.
First things first, go to your best projects README file and add a section that looks just like this. Don't just list what you built, state the objective, name the pattern you used, and, this is the most important part, describe the impact. This shows your thought process before they even look at a single line of your code.
And here's your homework. It's a simple two-part plan. That's it. First, pick one resilience pattern and actually build it into your project this week. Second, pick one of those authority-building phrases we just talked about and practice saying it out loud, seriously, so it feels totally natural in your next interview.
Let's bring it all home with this one final thought. Working code, the "it runs on my machine" kind, that's just the baseline. That's the starting line. Operable code is the real goal. It's designed to survive out in the wild. That is what makes you stand out.
So if you only take one thing away from this whole session, let it be this. This is your new mantra. Don't just aim for code that works, aim for code that is operable.
And to help you on that journey, get these 3 words tattooed on your brain: traceability, reliability, and operability. This is the absolute minimum vocabulary you need to have a serious discussion about production systems. Master them, use them, and show them in your work.
So I'll leave you with this final question. Don't just think about it. Pick one pattern and go make your project not just work, but truly survive.